Loki once borrowed Freya's falcon garb and flew oft in search of adventures to another part of Jotun-heim, where he perched on top of the gables of Geirrod's house. He soon attracted the attention of this giant, who bade one of his servants catch the bird. Amused at the fellow's clumsy attempts to secure him, Loki flitted about from place to place, only moving just as the giant was about to lay hands upon him, when, miscalculating his distance, he suddenly found himself a captive. Attracted by the bird's bright eyes, Geirrod looked closely at it and concluded that it was a god in disguise. And finding that he could not force himself to speak, he locked him in a cage, where he kept him for 3 whole months without food or drink. Conquered at last by hunger and thirst, Loki revealed his identity and obtained his release by promising that he would induce Thor to visit Geirrod without his hammer, belt, or magic gauntlet. Loki then flew back to Asgard and told Thor that he had been royally entertained and that his host had expressed a long desire to see the powerful thunder god, of whom he had heard such wonderful tales. Flattered by his artful speech, Thor was induced to consent to a friendly journey to Jotun-heim, and the 2 gods set out, leaving the 3 marvelous weapons at home. They had not gone far, however, ere they came to the house of the giantess Grid, one of Odin's many wives. Seeing Thor unarmed, she warned him to beware of the treachery and lent him her own girdle, staff, and glove. Some time after leaving her, Thor and Loki came to the river Vimir, which the Thunderer, accustomed to wading, prepared to ford, bidding Loki and Thialfi cling fast to his belt. In the middle of the stream, however, a sudden cloudburst and freshet overtook them. The waters began to rise and roar, and although Thor leaned heavily upon his staff, he was almost swept away by the force of the raging current. Wax not, Vimir, since to wade I desire. To the realm of the giants, no, if thou waxest, then waxes my awesome might, as high as the heavens. Norse Mythology, R.B. Anderson. Thor now became aware of the presence, upstream of Geirrod's daughter Gilop, and rightly suspecting that she was the cause of the storm, he picked up a huge boulder and flung it at her, muttering that the best place to dam a river was at its source. The missile had the desired effect, for the giantess fled. The waters abated, and Thor, exhausted but safe, pulled himself up the opposite bank by a little shrub, the mountain ash or sorb. This has since been known as Thor's salvation, and occult powers have been attributed to it. After resting a while, Thor and his companions resumed their journey. But upon arriving at Geirrod's house, the god was so exhausted that he sank wearily upon the only chair in sight. To his surprise, however, he felt it rising beneath him, and fearful lest he should be crushed against the rafters, he pushed the borrowed staff against the ceiling, and forced the chair downward with all his might. Then followed a terrible cracking, sudden cries and moans of pain, and when Thor came up to investigate, it appeared that the giant's daughters, Gilop and Gripe, had slipped under his chair with intent to treacherously slay him, and they had reaped a righteous retribution, and both lay crushed to death. Once I employed my awesome might in the realm of giants, with Gilop and Gripe, Geirrod's daughters, wanted to lift me to heaven. Norse Mythology by R.B. Anderson. Geirrod now appeared and challenged Thor to a test of strength and skill, but, without waiting for a preconcerted signal, he flung a red-hot wedge at him. Thor, quick of eye and a practiced catcher, caught the missile with the giantess's iron glove and hurled it back at his opponent. Such was the force of the god that the missile passed not only through the pillar behind which the giant had taken refuge, but through him and the wall of the house, and buried itself deep into the earth without. Thor then strode up to the giant's corpse, which, at the blow from his weapon, had been petrified into stone, and set it up in a conspicuous place as a monument of his strength and of the victory he had won over his redoubtable foes, the mountain giants. So that was Thor and Geirrod, the 10th section of Chapter 4 of Myths of the Norsemen by Helene A Guerber, Thor. I will be working my way through this book section by section, and if there are any other public domain books that you would like for me to read, please leave a comment below. Did you enjoy this video? Then subscribe for more, and be sure to check me out on Facebook and Patreon. Thank you for listening, and have a lovely evening.